What is going on, team? Welcome back to the channel. Back to the prep series vlog. A little bit of a different video format today. We're in the kitchen. It's a rest day today, so you guys have seen a couple of training sessions from this week already. So today being a rest day, if you watched yesterday's vlog, the leg day, which is very brutal, and I explained a lot of the reasons why I do things and how I do things, and structure to my training and training week. Generally, I like to take a rest day after legs because I'm pretty mangled after I train legs. So today, I thought I'd run you guys through a full day of eating. Like, really cliche, obviously, as a YouTube video, but I think it's super important to kind of see how you can potentially get the most out of your training and nutrition. And I suppose in terms of dieting as well. The way in which you set up a diet, especially during a fat loss phase or contest prep. So for me, being, I think we're sort of 11 weeks out now from the first show. So I guess in terms of the way I set my diet up, being at, 2,600 calories as of this week, a lot of it is around just managing hunger. And I think that's so underrated, especially during fat loss phases, is really just having a strict routine in place and not being too flexible, but not changing things too frequently, I think is really important, because the more structure you can have with your diet, the better you can manage all of those variables as you get deeper and just simply change like one or two things. So for me, I know that like this meal plan, the things that I'm currently eating really like digest well. My performance is really good, my energy is really good, and my hunger is managed. And I think that's the real Achilles heel to a lot of people's fat loss diets is they just get too hungry and they can't continue to function on those lower calories. And that's when they say, oh, I'm not losing weight, I'm eating 1,500 calories or whatever it might be. When in reality, they're not adhering to those calories because they're so fucking hungry. So they're continually deviating away from that plan, which is obviously not great for fat loss because you're not continuing to lose fat. So I think one thing that you'll notice throughout today's video is how much fruit and vegetables I eat on a daily basis. So in terms of like my total daily intake, for me at the moment, it's probably close to 1 kilo of fruit and veg a day. And that's pretty much in line with what I recommend to all my sort of athletes and clients as well. Is it's a big emphasis on fruits and vegetables, lots of micronutrient density. And I suppose as well, like when we look at the research on longevity and health, eating more fruits and vegetables helps you live longer, so why would you not do it? Anyway, that's enough for me. I'll show you guys what I'm having for breakfast. Very simple, very straightforward. Hasn't really changed throughout this entire prep. Literally egg white omelet, vegetables, and some fruit. All right, so breakfast done. So this is my meal one. Very simple, very straightforward, like I mentioned. I tend to push breakfast out a little bit further now that I'm dieting. It just kind of closes my eating window a little bit, so it kind of feels like I'm eating more without getting too hungry. I do like to get all my activity done. So Gabby and I go for our morning walk. We tend to get about 8,000 to 9,000 steps. Where are we at? 8,000. So try and get that done nice and early, get all my activity done, or mostly for the day. Come back, have brekkie. My first meal is always just like low carb. So protein, fruit and veg. As I mentioned, you guys know I love my fruit and veg. So this meal in total has I've got about 250 grams of veg in the omelet and 250 grams of fruit. So combined, we're already at 500 grams for the day. So my total is probably well above 1 kilo for fruit and vegetables combined. But just something that I've really found helpful for me. Activity done first thing in the morning, low carb, high protein breakfast, lots of fruit and vegetables, lots of fiber, keeps me nice and satiated. And then it sort of takes me to my next meal, which is my first actual carb meal of the day, my pre-workout meal where I tend to have like some rice and some more fruit, a little bit more lean protein, but very simple, very straightforward. I'll throw the calories and macros up so you guys can see it. That's it, meal one going down. All right, so we're back in the kitchen getting my post-workout meal ready. So after breakfast, I generally come in the kitchen and I make my post-workout meal, which is my third meal for the day. If you guys are familiar with any of my social media content, you know that it's always a post-workout cream of rice bowl. I know I've said it a million times, but this is the definitive way to make it perfect every single time. And I might walk you guys through how I do it to make the perfect bowl every time, because it's very simple once you figure it out. And I think after lots of tinkering and using different types of rice flour, different blends of protein, whether it's an isolate or a blend, finally nailed it. So I'll show you guys exactly what we do. So just for reference, because everyone always asks what rice flour, if you can see that, it's the Mackenzie's rice flour, the red box. You buy it from any like grocery store here in Australia. If you are in Australia, it's Coles or Woolworths. I think it's like $1.70 for a box. So I mean, it's unreal. This is exactly what I do. I weigh out my rice flour. So again, just plain rice flour. I'm having 100 grams, so 100 grams of rice flour in a container, like that. Then, what I've found to be the perfect ratio of water to flour is 5:1. So if I'm doing 100 grams of rice flour, I want 500 mils of water. And what that does is it gives it like a really nice thick consistency, especially, again, like we spoke about hunger management and dieting on this contest prep phase. A little bit more volume is certainly a better thing for me just to manage my hunger. So the way I make this, it ends up being quite big and cakey and full. So it actually works out really nice. So I've zeroed the scales off. I've got my 100 grams of rice flour. I'll go in with 500 mils of water, and I'll just kind of let that mix and then stir it all together so I get a nice even consistency. Perfect. All right, so that's my 500 mils of water, my 100 grams of rice flour. Literally just mix it all up. Make sure all the rice flour is kind of combined with the water, so you got this nice little paste. And then literally all I do is put it in the microwave. So again, depending on how much rice flour, how much water, it will depend on how long you need to cook it for. But with this specific ratio, I just generally go like 2 minutes for the first cook, and then I just do it in 30-second blasts for a total of 4 minutes cook time. And after many times of trial and error, that seems to be the perfect ratio for this. So if I do end up having a little bit less, I'll just cook it for maybe 3.5 minutes. I did some more on my refeed day the other day, and I ended up having to cook it for about 6 minutes. So this is perfect for now. So that's all mixed together. Water, rice flour, in the microwave, 2 minutes. All right, so I told you guys it's like a fine science figuring this out, but that's the consistency after 4 minutes of cooking. So it's literally like mashed potato kind of consistency, which is awesome. So you want to let it cool down a little bit and then literally go in with your protein. So again, with protein, it's been a fun journey figuring out which one works best. And typically it's any sort of whey blend does work best. So for me, honestly, this one has been an absolute game changer. This is a choc peanut butter Nitrotech 100% whey. So this is a whey blend. The flavor, unreal. The consistency, unreal. I think what people find most of the time if they use a crappy sort of protein powder, and generally it's like lower quality protein powders as well, ones that do have added digestive enzymes and things like that seem to work worse. Like as soon as you put it in, it just turns to mush and water. This one, done. So as soon as I put that in, you'll see the texture, it gets nice and thick, and then I put some fruit in and I cook it again so I get that cakey core consistency. You don't have to cook it again. You could just put the protein powder in and just eat it that way. But I prefer, like I said, have it a bit more sort of full, a little bit more volume, and I put the fruit in there as well just to get a little bit more fruit throughout the day as well, like I mentioned before. All right, so we're done. It's a total of 8 minutes cook time. So I say this to everyone, unless you're really patient, don't bother with cream of rice because there's a few ways you can do it, but obviously the longer microwave kind of cook, stir situation works a lot better. So anyway, that's the consistency where we're working with after like 8 minutes of cooking. It's literally like a cake. Like you can tip it, it'll fall out, but I won't do that. But it's literally like a cake. So that's how I prefer it. That sort of consistency, nice, thick, cakey. The one thing that I've started doing now, which is really OCD just because I'm on prep and all these little idiosyncrasies start playing out, is I put my dark chocolate, so it's like 2 squares of dark chocolate, which is like 10 grams. But instead of like breaking it up and kind of, you know, getting little squares of chocolate throughout the whole thing, I've gone like real bougie and I started grating my chocolate on top. So what happens is when, obviously because it's still pretty hot, I've just got it out of the microwave, the shaved chocolate kind of melts and then I put it in the fridge and eat it later. So I actually prefer eating it cold. You guys can let me know in the comments what you prefer. I'm a cold core advocate. Gabby, my fiance, loves hot core, but especially when it's super hot here, like we're in Queensland, it's stinking hot. And coming home after training, like being sweaty and gross, man, nothing is better than having a cold bowl of core straight out of the fridge. So what happens is when you sort of grate the chocolate on top, you kind of get it all over the whole top, it creates this like chocolatey layer. And then once you put it in the fridge for a couple of hours and it sets, it almost ends up like a, you know, ice magic, if you've ever had that, as a like a hard topping you can kind of crack into it, which I love. So, and I get more out of the chocolate as well. Like it's only 2 tiny little squares, only 10 grams of dark chocolate. So it means I can get more like coverage with that dark chocolate. So I'll show you guys how this looks once I'm done anyway. And that is it. Post-workout core done, nice and cakey. We've got our melted chocolate layer on top. I'll put that in the fridge for a couple of hours and I'll have that later in the day. Today, obviously not training, so it'll be like post cardio, but still same timing, like post workout. And all I'll do once I get home is I'll put a little bit of salt on that. I might put some like sugar-free syrup, and that is my post workout meal every day. Super simple, delicious, filling, love it. All right, guys, we are back in the kitchen for my second meal. So this obviously being a rest day, it's not really like a structured meal plan around what I'm actually doing throughout the day, but this would typically be my pre-workout meal. So this is my first actual carb meal for the day, just with some rice and a bit more fruit. You'll become abundantly apparent that I do eat a lot of fruit. So looking at the way I've set this up and the way I structured it kind of makes the most sense for me. And I've said this a lot just around the way I structure these meals and the way I time my nutrients just seems to work really well for me in terms of hunger, digestion, performance. So I think in most cases, like simple is best. And I can't stress that point enough for everyone is don't try and be fancy. Don't get like overly complicated with the way you structure your meal plan because I think it will come back and bite you in the ass at some point in time because like consistency is the thing that matters most. So just for the video, for the purpose of today, pre-workout meal, I've got 200 grams of uncooked chicken, and you would have seen I just pre-cook my chicken for a few days at a time, just makes life easy. I think that's something I get asked quite a lot is like about meal prep or how do you plan meals and stuff like that. It's super simple. I plan out how much chicken I need for the week, so I just have one chicken meal per day, this meal. So it's 200 grams per meal across 5 days. It's a kilo of raw chicken, so I just get a kilo of raw chicken, cut it up, cook it, and then I weigh it again once it's cooked so I know how much to divide it by. So 200 grams of raw chicken works out to be about 140 grams of cooked chicken. So literally you just put that with some fresh rice each day. I've got some fruit in there, whether you can see that or not, but basically 200 grams of fruit, my rice and chicken, and that's pretty much it, super simple. The only other thing I add, a bit of salt and pepper, and I just typically rotate through some low calorie sauces. So for anyone in Australia, this is the I Am Thai Sweet Chili Sauce Light Edition. So it is 4 calories per 20 ml serving. So super low in calories. And I think that's really important, especially during dieting phases, fat loss phases, contest prep, whatever you want to call it. I think there is a time and a place for like low calorie alternative sauces and stuff like that because it's not adding any crazy sort of amount of calories to your overall diet, so it's pretty easy to add in and not have too many issues. The main concern for a lot of people is like digestive issues from artificial sweeteners and flavors and stuff like that. So like it does come with some caveats. If you do get digestive issues, don't have it obviously. But I think if you have no issues with it and it's not contributing overly highly to your daily calorie intake, why not? Your diet's already like restrictive enough in the sense that you are eating way less calories than you would normally eat. So you kind of need to have something in there to at least make it a little bit more appealing. And I think, having a tablespoon of sauce in a couple of meals per day really doesn't detract negatively or anything like that. So I think for me personally, a little bit of sauce makes the meal a little bit more enjoyable, especially during these dieting phases. Meal 3 going down. So I already showed you guys how I made this one, so I don't think I really need to go through it too much. It's my post-workout cream of rice. You saw how I cooked it. That is the definitive, the end-all, be-all of recipes. You don't need to do it any other way. That's the only way you need to do it. Just make sure you get a good protein powder. Like I said, this is my post-workout meal every day. So around this time, generally between like 3 and 3:30 is when I get home from training. So this being a rest day, that doesn't change. And I think this is probably a good point to bring up around nutritional rest days versus training days. Even something that I had done previously with my own nutrition and my clients' nutrition was like lower calories on rest days, where I think I've kind of moved past that notion now of eating lower on rest days to account for the removal of activity from training, albeit probably only a couple hundred calories. So I'm more of the opinion now that like on the rest days, when the priority is recovery and rest, it probably makes sense to have more food, right? Rather than pulling food down, because you do want to have those available nutrients there to facilitate better recovery. So what I would do in this instance is keep my calories pretty much the same every day of the week. And then there is the potential to maybe just adjust your macronutrient split. So maybe on your rest days, you could find a use case for just like having higher fats and lower carbs. But again, like I don't think it really matters too much, because I think when we look at what is the thing that matters most. It's the weekly calorie average. So whether you have higher calories on one day, lower calories on the other day, as long as the calorie average is in whatever range you need it to be, I think that's the most important factor. And then on an individual basis, you know, personal preferences, whatever it might be, you could adjust up or down, or simply just, you know, shift around your macronutrient targets. But for me, calories stay the same, food stays the same, nothing else changes. I think the vast majority of people, consistency is the thing that matters most. So rather than changing too many things and having too many moving variables, it's just simpler to stay on track, same food, same meals, same calories, don't change anything. But that's it, meal 3, eat that, and I'm gonna tug into some client check-ins, and then I'll see you guys for meal 4, which is my dinner. All right, so we're in the kitchen making my last meal, which is my like pre-bed dessert meal. I usually do this like ahead of time because I freeze it for a couple of hours. It's like, you know, most people do like a Ninja Creamy. This is kind of like my creamy on a budget without a Ninja Creamy. So it's just like a frozen yogurt bowl with some fruit, dark chocolate, and some sauce and delicious stuff on top. So usually what I do at nighttime is like, I'll get my dinner cooking. So tonight we're having some steaks and pumpkin. I'll show you guys what that looks like for my 4th meal, which is my dinner. But while that pumpkin's cooking, I usually get this organized. So really, really simple. And this is something that I've had like, man, consistently now for the last couple of years, just because it's so satiating, especially on this prep. Like I find just having the majority of my carbohydrates around training, and then I sort of save my lower carb slash, you know, essentially no added carb meals other than fruit, obviously, later in the day. So this is just really, really satisfying to have at night. And again, it kind of like, you know, satisfies that sweet tooth craving a little bit. Not that I even care about that, but it's more just something nice to have at nighttime before bed. So if you're in Australia, Chobani yogurt, anywhere else in the world, I'm sure it's a very similar product. It's just 0 fat Greek yogurt, so super high in protein, no added fat, and pretty low in carb as well. And then I usually just go in with different flavored protein every night. So tonight we've got the Nitrotech banana, which is so delicious. So this just ends up like a sort of banana, you know, frozen yogurt bowl. So I've got 350 grams of yogurt in there. I might even throw up the calories and macros on this as well so you guys can see it. But 350 grams of yogurt, 40 grams of whey, and I just mix that together until I get a nice even consistency. And then I'll put some frozen berries in. So I usually go in with about, depending on, you know, where my calories are for the day, but about 100 to 150 grams of frozen berries. And then I'll put a little bit of dark chocolate and I freeze it for generally an hour and a half to 2 hours. And by the time it's ready to eat, it's super delicious frozen yogurt bowl, and especially because it's like really hot here in Australia at the moment too. So it's a really nice sort of dessert to have before bed when I'm sweating my ass off like I am tonight. But it's pretty simple. I'll show you guys what it looks like when I actually put it together tonight, because there's a few low calorie hacks that I like to use to make it taste even better, with some like powdered peanut butter and some 0 calorie syrup on top, which makes it taste even better. So that's it. I'll show you guys what it looks like when I eat it tonight in a couple hours time. All right, so in the kitchen, wrapping up, making our dinner. This is meal 4 for me. And when I tell you guys, we've literally been trying to film this for the vlog for like 2 weeks now. So when we put this video on the last hunt, I'm gonna look a little different. I'm a little lighter. I got my beard cut, I got a haircut, but nevertheless, we're making it happen. So meal 4 has been pretty much the same for me every night. Obviously, as calories get lower, we just adjust the quantities of certain foods or just substitute foods out. So this one, we've got lean eye fillet steak tonight. I've got some pumpkin and we've got some broccoli. Again, very low calorie, low carbohydrate, high protein meal. Super satiating in this dieting phase, but I'll show you guys how it looks. And I'll probably give you the full calorie and macro breakdown as well on the screen once I have it. Alrighty, so steak's cooked, cooled down, I'll cut that up. We've got 100 grams of broccoli, 200 grams of steak each. I've got actually 50 grams of avocado because I got a little bit of fat in this meal. But pumpkin, man, what a super underrated food during a fat loss phase. I'm having 400 grams of pumpkin, which is literally like less than 150 calories. So it's only like 25 grams of carbs for 400 grams of pumpkin. So when I talk about being really strategic with the way you diet, and it's not just as black and white when it comes to like reducing calories. While reducing calories is obviously part of the equation, we need to kind of think about how we manage hunger on the flip side of that equation. So when it comes to dieting successfully, we need to find ways in which we increase overall food volume via reducing calories. So looking for foods that are lower in calories, higher in fiber, to manage hunger and to obviously keep you losing fat. So for me, like being at 2,600 calories, my fat loss has been really, really consistent, and I've had no real issues with hunger management. So pumpkin, super underrated. If you're not eating pumpkin on a fat loss phase, you should be. All right, we finally made it. 2 weeks in the making, a full day of eating. I finally didn't eat all my meals before we filmed them. So I showed you guys how I made this one. Very, very simple. Frozen yogurt bowl, bit of fruit, bit of dark chocolate. But now it's actually frozen. So it was in the freezer for about 2 hours. And it's just super nice, super filling during this dieting phase. So all I do to kind of finish this off, again, if you're in Australia, PB2 or even Macro Mike, I just bought a bunch of the Macro Mike powdered peanut butter. I actually prefer that a lot better than the PB2, to be honest. So Macro Mike, if you're listening. But again, it's like, it's pretty much just like peanut butter flavored like protein powder. It's way lower in calories than normal peanut butter or almond butter, and it's higher in protein. So it's just kind of got the same consistency as peanut butter, but way less calories. So all I do with this is, the serving size is about 10 grams. So I literally just do like 10 grams, you mix it with a little bit of water, and then put it on top as like a little peanut butter topping. So super delicious. And then all I do is it's almost 0 calorie, like 25 grams of this is like 3 calories or 4 calories or something. So it's nothing. Sugar-free, 0 cal, almost 0 cal, salted caramel topping on top. And that's my like pre-bed dessert / yogurt meal. So I'll show you guys what that looks like when I finish it here. But that is pretty much me done. 5 meals across the day on a low day, which is my typical diet setup. Total calories work out to be about 2,600, I think 2,630 to be exact. It's about 275 grams of 270 grams of protein, 275 carb, and about 50 fat. So again, like really, really easy to kind of maintain this diet. Hunger's been sort of perfect, digestion's been perfect, mood, performance, everything has been bang on. So for me, it's really been a process of just fine tuning my diet over long periods of time, many contest preps in order to kind of nail it. So I just know that if I need to change one variable, I know exactly what I need to change and I can anticipate the outcome. So I think that's a really good point to get across to people who are potentially dieting or just looking to set up their diet in the best way that they can, is like stick to your calorie and macro targets and then figure out like what meal structure, what sources of foods work best for you in terms of digestion, energy, performance, hunger, and then just tinker with it over time until you find the right ratios of all of those things. And that's when the fun part starts. But until next time, I think, what are we doing? We're training tomorrow, upper push, I think. So we'll see you tomorrow in the gym for upper push.